I have the notion of going to Ulea. It's a ski hill in northern. A circle R-E. Ulea. I'm told that's how I pronounce it. Older. I don't have. I'm just not. I mean, I don't. I'm terrible at the Finnish double A's too, right? Older. See, it's doing it. See, look. See, it's doing. I don't know the Finnish double A's. Hello. Who's it picking up? Anyway, I visit all the places where I watch police procedures for so last year after Fonzo, I was there. I was trying to figure out how to guess. I should go figure out how to get to there. Ule Tone was like, no, just come to Oslo. We'll go up together. We'll ski up. Like, 30 seconds more. Whatever you did, you didn't do as bad as me. Fortunately, I didn't paddle. I would have had a cast up here for a year. Instead, I had a cast down below my knee for like 3 months. But I still have there's some questions about whether I grew wrong, but then I discovered my cousin was on the same problems for so we talked to him. Hello. They did make the screen. The screens were not so big. The previous session, but those of you in the back might want to move closer to a microphone, if you like. Welcome to the Monday ASDF session at IETF 124. Thanks for all the people who are remote. I guess we have about 14 or 15 people total right now. Please join the room so you're on the blue sheets. Please remember to use the microphone cue buttons as well. So welcome to the ASDF meeting. This is we have a second meeting on Wednesday where we will continue with some of the other content. I'm going to take notes, so we don't need a note-taking volunteer, but you're welcome to join us, and someone is. Thank you, Jan. And this is our agenda for today. We're going to hear from 2 different people and have conversation about the protocol mapping. That is Rohit and Karsten. And then we're going to go on to the NIPSI issues. And we're going to spend the majority of the rest of the today's session on that. And we have some time for overflow on Wednesday as well. Oh yeah, so I assume you've seen the note well. You did when you signed up, and all over the place. I'm not going to read it to you. Please be aware of intellectual property issues, and more importantly, please be nice to each other and speak slowly. He says to myself, speak slowly, and please deal with issues, not people. Thank you. So Rohit, I think you're remote. Let me pull up.
Yes.
Let's see. Do this. Rohit, did you have slides?
Yeah, it's part of the NIPSI slides.
It's part of the what? NIPSI slides?
Yeah.
share slides, protocol mapping, and NIPSI. Okay, there we go. For my selection, and I'll give you the slide control here. There we go. No, there we go. There we go.
Yeah.
And we're a small group. Use the microphone cue if you can or want, but also please just participate there.
Hey, I'm audible, right? You guys can hear me?
Go ahead. We can hear you.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, the SDF protocol mapping. So since the last IETF, the draft has been adopted, and since then we've also published a 0.1 version of the draft. We've not had a lot of major changes in the draft. So in the last draft, the changes that we have were we updated all the CDDL definitions because the initial versions were incorrect. So we fixed those, and then we also added a scheme extension for SDF. So this was something that we had discussed in the previous IETF. So I would also like to thank Elliot for his help regarding this, and then also a new IANA registration for the scheme SDF URN. So just a quick description of the scheme extension for SDF. This is like an example, like scheme document for a device that uses like the device core schema, and we've introduced this new URN extension SDF for a device, which can essentially just contains a list of SDF names. And this is pretty much, I think, what we presented in the last IETF as well. And we've added a schema for this, like a scheme schema as part of the draft along with the registration. So that's actually it for the updates for SDF. I think the remaining slides are all NIPSI slides. So, like, should we just continue discussing SDF, or should the SDF protocol mapping, or should we continue to?
We're going to stay on SDF protocol mapping, and
Yeah.
Karsten, I guess, is you have some other slides, so let's switch there. And protocol mapping and revision protocol, SDF protocol map versus instance. Why do I have two of them? 11:45:12 and 11:45:13. So there's a difference of 1 second. Is that the right slide? The other one?
That is for Wednesday.
Okay.
And I forgot to update the date. I'm sorry. Yeah, very good. So the objective of these two slides is to remind ourselves that why we are designing the class level aspects of the protocol mapping. We will have to think about the instance level of that as well. We are not designing an instance level right now because we want to finish the protocol mapping document in time with the NIPSI document, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't start thinking about this to make sure we don't do something stupid. So this is an example for an SDF object specification. This is all SDF base for the moment. It's called temperature sensor. It has one property that's called temperature. The temperature has a unit, which is Celsius, degrees Celsius, and it has a type, which is a number. And then the new thing is that it has a protocol map, and the protocol map says for the protocol CoAP, we have a read interaction, and that read interaction uses the CoAP method, get the href, the UI reference / temperature, and is expected to deliver a content type of 60. I think that should be content format. I'm not sure, but that's not the important thing here. So that's application / CBOR. So I think we understand this, but we should think about this in context. So how does instance information for this look like? And one observation is that to actually make use of this protocol mapping, you have to know about the IP address. So that would occur in the instance information, but not at the class level information for that specific device. But we probably have to think about the class level information for protocol mappings in general. So yeah, I'm sorry, this is complicated. So basically, somewhere we should say that IP addresses are strings with some SDF type that we haven't defined in SDF yet, because SDF didn't need to represent IP addresses at the class level so far. So we would at some point define an SDF type for an IP address. And here's one way to do this, which is at the class level again, that we say in the SDF context, we can store an IP address, which will only be available as instance information. So we just say it's a string with a specific format. So this is meant to remind us that apart from the information that is specified at the class level, which is method get href / temperature content type 60, we have other information that is coming in from the instance. And these two pieces of information need to be combined to actually formulate the request. And the big problem here that I'm probably going to talk about a bit more the day after tomorrow is it's not at all clear how this context finds its way to this protocol map entry. So we need some way to link that. And yeah, so that's where we are. I don't have an answer to that, but it could look very much like this, plus maybe a little bit of information about how this links together. So that's all I want to say. Alex.
Yes, Alexander Pelov. Thank you very much. Really interesting question here. And maybe I'll just like follow-up question. What happens if the IP address changes of the device? Or if you have non-IP devices, you know, we can put IP on everything, but you can run co-op over non-IP stuff. You can have, and then you can basically have the identity of the device that can be like an EUI or something else. Like, is there a way to say, well, all these things are this device, so, you know, like figure it out?
Yeah, so there is something called an identity manifest that might contain something like that, which is not in these drafts, but another draft. That is indeed a good question. So the other protocol map we will be talking about in a second is BLE, Bluetooth Low Energy, and that indeed doesn't have an IP address. And also, if we have multiple protocols, then these protocols may not all be using the same IP address. So for BLE, I probably would want to have a MAC address somewhere in the context. So that's exactly the kind of linking I meant. We need to understand how the actual protocol map, which is at the class level, can say, oh, by the way, in your context, you should find an IP address, and please use that. Or MAC address.
I also understood Alex's question to be, how do I have to keep repeating the IP address for each method?
Yeah.
I do, or I don't.
No.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So this proposal here on the right side of the slide allows you to pull that out of the context. The alternative is to actually have it in the instance information for every single interaction that needs an IP address. And that would be data duplication. And data duplication is not only wasteful, it's really hard to maintain. So that should not happen.
So on the left-hand side, is it possible that the IP address thing could move one or two blocks out or left to represent bigger pieces, but still be overridable below?
Yeah, the question is whether the tree structure actually gives you what you need there. But yeah, so the left side is the bad way to do this.
Okay.
And the right side is saying, well, maybe if we put it in the context, that's a convenient place to actually reference it from. But we don't have the reference concept in our minds yet.
And I guess my other question is, when we say IP address on the right, is there some other meta information other than type that you think justifies why it's just not IP address : string? You have an additional type. Is there some other meta information that would fall underneath that space?
Well, at the class level in SDF, we have this type colon something to say something has a particular type.
Okay, that's just you reusing that then.
That's
okay.
the standard way of doing this in SDF base. Okay, so I hope I have sufficiently confused you that you now have a motivation to think about this problem. The problem, the actual problem is that there are 100 ways to solve this, and we need to decide for one, or maybe two. So that's really the work that needs to be done, but I wanted to alert you that this work needs to be done.
I guess the other question is then, is there somebody who has a radically different proposal that we need to spend time discussing back and forth? Because now I think is the time to do that.
Yeah, if that radical proposal actually influences what's in the current SDF protocol map draft, yes. If you can do this without retroactively changing that specification once we have the instance information, we can relax.
I'm really just asking, like, great, this sounds good, let's go ahead. Is there some other, is there something that would someone has well, that's not going to work for X? And I want to hear that.
Yeah, that's why I want to alert people to.
Go ahead, Ari.
No, I think this actually looks pretty good. I like the approach on the right. Although I started to think about now this on-device, off-device aspects. And of course, this is the blurred lines, right? Because the IP address typically would be known by the device and now by the context information. And also, will we get SDF instance ref to reference this? But I guess those are the engineering decisions down the road. But I think I like the approach on the right. So, and I guess your Carsten, case your point was like the approach on the right doesn't have impact like on the SDF protocol map. So we can relax and keep on working on the way forward, and this will nicely fit into that concept.
Yeah, that depends on your mental model, whether SDF context reaches out into the SDF protocol map or the SDF protocol map reaches out in the SDF context.
Oh, good point.
Yeah, because
but yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, because now so I think so far in the draft, what we do is that we have everything self-contained in the SDF protocol map. Okay. Now we would need also to add something.
But the SDF protocol map is class level information.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. But
And
basically now
there isn't even a way to add instance information to that.
Okay.
So we cannot have this problem.
Okay.
But thinking about the future, as soon as we have instance information, we may want to have a way to actually get the 2 points.
No, absolutely. I just
together.
I'm trying to say how this setup would affect what it is now on the draft, and And of course, if it makes sense, there's no problem. We just got to do it, right?
Yeah, so my feeling on this is that we are clean.
Yeah, absolutely. We have Rohit also.
Yeah, I just want to quickly add, so regarding Lorenzo's comment as well. So I guess this shouldn't really affect what we have in the current version of the draft. But I just want to also add, Carsten, you mentioned BLE, so that we would have like a MAC address here instead of an IP. So the current sort of assumption, because we don't have the instance information yet, the current assumption that we are making is like for NIPSI, the MAC is available in SCIM, for example. So the instance information, that is the device registration, we do it as part of SCIM. There we provide like the MAC address, and the NIPSI would use that. And the SDF protocol mapping is sort of independent of that information.
Yeah, that's really the question. How do you compose instance information from various places? And we have not answered that at all yet.
Yeah.
Maybe now also I want to bring up something. So we have dependencies with this draft to NIPSI. So NIPSI is waiting for this draft, right? And then we should try to wrap it as soon as possible. So currently in the draft we have, well, we specified the registry, and then we started adding also some protocol mappings, like there were ZigBee and BLE taken from NIPSI. Then we started adding HTTP co-op, OpenAPI, and it's getting longer, right? So one of the proposals that we discussed during the hackathon was, why don't we simply strip everything out of the current draft and we just define the registry, and then we have separate drafts for adding the protocol maps. And this is just a discussion I want to have with the working group to see what we can do to fast track this draft, so that we can also patch up NIPSI. Any opinion?
Yeah, I think we should have consensus that this needs to be a registry. Whether this registry comes empty with a protocol map or is populated by a couple of initial entries, that is indeed very much economy of publishing thing that does not by itself has any technical consequences. Of course, if you want to use the protocol, then you have to have the registry entries out there. So did we say what policy comes with this registry?
Sounds like specification required.
Okay, so specification required. Bart is in the queue.
Yes, hello. Hey, like I feel like it's very useful to have a couple of examples in the draft itself. So, and I think the ones that are in there right now are kind of good examples of, typical non-IP and, kind of IP-based protocols. So I think with the ones we have, we can move forward and then potentially add others in the registry as well.
Okay, so these are not examples in the sense of being non-normative just for exposition, but these are actually actual registrations that will be used in real life, and we should kind of not overdo this because this will delay things.
If it's just a document producing a registry with some useful examples, no, it's more than that. Yeah. To be used.
Initial registrations, not examples.
Yes, sir. Useful registrations that, the question is, does it need to go in a different document, or could it just go into another? Could it go into could it go into NIPSI if NIPSI is going to already have to do registrations, or do we really want another document? Because what I'm understanding is that there are some more complexities in SDF protocol that may take us longer to get through, but that we don't need to solve all those problems to create the registry. Maybe I'm mishearing the proposal
I think we want to go ahead with SDF protocol map
as it is?
as it is.
Yeah.
Generate these 2 initial registrations, put them into the document, and call the thing done.
Yeah, plus we also have, oh, well, maybe I should respect the queue. Rohit?
Yeah, I just want to add that today we have BLE, Zigbee, and OpenAPI as the 3 different protocols that we have in the SDF protocol map draft, and there's a registration for those as well. So I think, like Carsten said, maybe we should just keep that and then think about adding, like, at least BLE and Zigbee, because those are the ones that NIPSI depends on as well.
Yeah, I'm not sure we have consensus on the OpenAPI part. So
Yeah, so
super fine on Zigbee and BLE at least. And then
yeah,
we can, maybe Karsten has an opinion on.
Yeah, so referencing OpenAPI is another can of worms, and we need to make sure we don't open it while doing it.
yeah. I guess we could leave the BLE and Zigbee in, and then have everything else like as an example. Like, we don't actually register it.
Interesting. Yeah, we should do that.
Yeah, I pretty much agree on that approach. I think that the reason why we wanted to have these, let's say, IP-based registrations was to exercise the mechanism to see that it actually fits. We're not in a rush to standardize them, and especially if we don't have clear view how they will be exactly used, it's better leave them out. Just have the ones that we know will be used and how they will be used, leave them in. But it's very good you did the exercise that making sure that the mechanism we have there extends nicely to the potential use case we care about.
Yeah, so the readers of the document will not be able to distinguish between initial registrations and examples. So we have to be prepared that people are thinking the examples we put in there are normative, but we can at least say that these are examples and prepare people that there will be changes to them.
Okay.
Thank you, Karsten.
I have one question about the previous presentation, though, on the protocol mapping and the scheme extension for SDF. So we did have a short discussion on the mailing list about where should that definition be placed, and now it's in the appendix is the actual, let's say, more normative part, and then the core of the document only has it on example. And I suggested on the list that maybe it would make sense to have in the core part and have some normative text on the SDF scheme extension. I'm wondering, like, if there's some more views on that.
Yeah, this was a suggestion that I got from Elliot. So he suggested that it doesn't have to be normative because scheme itself, I think, requires only like a reference to the schema for the registration. So he suggested that we can just leave it as just for information purposes because it doesn't directly relate to the SDF protocol map itself.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair point. But on the other, when I'm thinking of using from another specification, if I would use that capability, I wouldn't want to reference an informative appendix. I would rather reference a normative part of a document. But you do have a good point that, like, it's not mandatory part, but we could simply say it's optional here. But if you want to do it, here's how you do it, and then have normative text describing how you actually do it. Because now it seems a bit too casual, the description of how you used everything. So having a bit more formality there, and also kind of easy place you can point to from external specifications, I think that would be better. Unless there's a strong reason to have it in the appendix, but I guess it's more of a matter of taste.
Yeah, I think that's what it is at this point. So maybe I'll just think through it again.
Cool, thanks.
I think it's the same deck, isn't it, Rohit? Yeah. So I'll give you the slide control buttons. Oh, is it Bart? Bart's going to talk?
Yeah, it'll be Bart.
Okay.
Yep, it's going to be me. one more slide forward.
You have slide control.
I do? Oh, perfect. All right. Thank you, everyone. I hope you're all enjoying Montreal. I'm sorry I couldn't be there. Looking forward to meeting you all face-to-face next time. These are kind of NIPSI updates since the last interim. So we released draft 14 yesterday. We focused on fixing as many items as possible. So there were 24 items fixed. That means, you know, we agreed with the person that kind of raised the item. 9 items that need discussion. We'd like to do that today. And then 5 items that are still work in progress. The fixed items are the following. I'm not going to go through these. Most of them were raised by Michael and Ari, so they're the top issue creators. I would say, you know, if you can take a look at the solution and give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down, we can still update it. You know, it does. You know, the fact that it's fixed doesn't always mean that it was fixed completely to your liking. And we plan to, you know, close these definitively by November 17th, which is in 2 weeks, if no additional comments come. They are, yes, Ari, and you are the prime troublemakers, and thank you for that, because obviously you're making the document better. And now I lost my train of thoughts.
Things that require discussion. Next slide.
Yeah. Exactly. So we'll go into the required discussions. So yeah, what I wanted to say is that none of these actually implicated any API changes. So they were just changes to the text actually explaining the APIs. The ones that require discussions are both the changes that we made that update the API and also things that we would like to further discuss. The first one is an API update. So in our last discussion, we kind of discussed devices versus group APIs, and we kind of decided to split those up. So we did create kind of a new group collection and subsequently, you know, APIs that act on groups. And this was included in kind of the previous draft already. But then when actually implementing this, we kind of came across an issue because we had specified kind of like APIs to kind of enable and get status of events on entire groups of devices. And we basically kind of returned the get there of these events as an array of the return value of the devices. But then we realized that the device ID was not in there, right? Because typically the device ID is linked to the instance ID in the device, in the get groups device ID events. Oh, sorry, in the get devices ID events API. But here the instance ID is linked to the group. So what we had to do is we had to add kind of a device ID kind of in each element of the array to a reference for which device that event was activated. So we had to update the return value of the group ID events API. So this is a change that we did to the API. I don't think there's going to be any objections to this because it doesn't work real well without that, because you don't really get a per device status without that. But you know, in any case, I think this was a change to the API. Okay, I see nobody jumping up. Okay, this is a big one that was raised in kind of multiple discussions by Michael and Ari, and it's the use of the onboarding terminology. And we really took we really kind of used the onboarding terminology because it's the term that is used in the SCIM context as well. And it's all over the SCIM device model draft. And so we were thinking, okay, if we use another term, right, it will be very confusing because, you know, because onboarding is actually done through SCIM, and in the SCIM draft, it's referred to as onboarding. So you'll be reading that. You're going to be coming to the NIPSI draft, and we're going to be using another term. So, you know, we kind of defined what onboarding is in NIPSI, or why we need onboarding, and obviously, in order to perform a NIPSI operation on a device, we have to know about that device, so it has to have its identity declared. And that's what we refer to as onboarding. It happens through SCIM. And, you know, there's other context that comes with the device object, and that allows us to bootstrap trust and with the device and establish a connection with it. So because you know, there were various other kind of proposals, but we kind of feel very strongly because of the word onboarding is the term that's used in SCIM to continue to use that term. So I'm kind of looking at Michael and Ari here to comment.
I accept your reason. I guess I might push back is maybe SCIM should use the term, you know, that may be better for everybody, but I accept your defense of confusion between those, but that still puts them in both documents into a, but this is not the same term that other people use. And okay, fine.
Yeah, +1. Thanks a lot, Bart, for explaining this. And as long as it's clear in the document that this term onboarding is the term onboarding used by the SCIM documents over there, then I think that's good enough. I had to actually look up what was my issue, and I think I asked, is this something related to the onboarding term in Untitled RG IoT security draft? And maybe that draft then needs to be updated to point to SCIM that, hey, here's how SCIM uses onboarding. And then we have it, my comment covered. But thanks a lot.
Yeah, I looked to quite like quite a few drafts to see how these terms are used, and even in other drafts on board, like Elliot has a onboarding draft, and then that also kind of uses this term, and then there's a few drafts in EMU run with EAP methods that also use the term, you know, in this. So it is kind of used in multiple ways. Yes.
Indeed. And that was actually one of the reasons, like, why we initiated this IoT security draft in Untitled RG to kind of discuss how are these terms used and what is their relation. So now we just get it there, and then at least my comment is well covered. And as long as in your document I said it's clear you're using this term as defined in that SCIM RFC, it's good for me. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Cool. Then there's a second one here, which is was just brought up by Michael, so and only once, which is the registrations terminology. And I think Michael had comments on the registration section. I think, you know, Michael, you should look at it, which way we think we addressed. But there was like one open thing where you were kind of thinking about, okay, is registrations the right name here? So currently, the registrations collection is used for ASDF model registration and data app registration. You didn't really mention kind of any issue with the SDF model registration, but more with the data model registration, which could be another. There were two suggestions in there: authorizations as a collection, or map. Actually, it should be maps probably as a or mappings as a collection. I think authorizations could map well to like the data app concept, but it would be the only API in the collection. And I'm wondering, does it really make it clearer, right, that to kind of create a new collection for data app authorization or registration. So I kind of feel like we've got this collection of registrations that are required for gateways to perform NIPSI operations. It's the only collection that isn't an actual or that doesn't actually have NIPSI APIs under it that pertain to a particular idea. So I think it's a good collection to kind of, group these registrations. So we were kind of prone, or we would prefer to leave that as is, but obviously it's a comment that we weren't able to address. So I'd also want your and maybe other people's feedback on this.
I will have to read the text to understand what you resolved, but it probably is good. I was just going to open an issue, ask you to change your UUIDs to be a little less, to differ by more than one digit.
In the examples, you mean?
Yeah, in the examples, just, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just hard to like, wait, is it the same one again? No, it's not. Okay, that's all.
Okay.
That should be simple to copy and paste. A unique one everywhere you need it to be different.
Absolutely. All right. Then Michael brought something up also that made us think, and I kind of put his text here. So he kind of brought up, hey, wouldn't it be interesting for a NIPSI gateway to be able to map payloads from one technology to another, right? So, for example, can you, turn on a Zigbee-based light with a BLE actuator? And it's actually a very interesting idea. It's not something that we, kind of envisioned originally, but, in kind of, if you look at Zigbee has the notion of bindings to bind like an event to an action, like a switch to turn a light on. So if, Zigbee has this concept inside the technology, could NIPSI implement something like this cross technology? So Zigbee calls this a binding. I'm not saying that, we have to call it a binding, but I think it's a very, very interesting idea. And I think we should look into it. Bindings would pertain to an instance of a device, so not a class, right? So it wouldn't really be part of the SDF kind of model unless it's a part of the SDF context, right? So it would be something more of an instance, and bindings would probably always bind an event to an action, but we were talking about, can it kind of bind a value of a property to an action as well? And they could be one-to-one, right? One switch turns on one light, or they could be one-to-one, one switch one to n, one switch turns on multiple lights, or two switches can turn on one light, right? So do we again use this registrations collection because it doesn't pertain to a particular ID, but it does pertain to multiple IDs, or something else to create an API that allows an application to create such a binding? So then when an NIPSI gateway gets an event, right, and it looks at all its bindings it has for this event, and then it can potentially initiate an action. So this could be an interesting concept to include in NIPSI. So I don't know if anybody has any thoughts on that, but it's something we might want to investigate still.
Go ahead, Karsten.
Thank you, Bart. This is really important. We have made a number of approaches working with this over in the co-working group. We have something called the DynLink document, which currently is just waiting for some personal rotation to be completed, but I hope at some point we will complete it. But more specifically in ASDF, there is a draft that has the words SDF type and link in the name. I don't remember the exact name. And that does exactly this. So it provides a way in the class level information in the model to say there is some information that points to something else. It doesn't tell you exactly what the semantics of that link is, but links can have semantics. So this uses the web linking approach. So probably for NIPSI needs to be extended a little bit, but would essentially address this problem. So I think what would be good at this point would be to develop a few examples for what kind of information we want to specify at the class level. And so, for instance, a light switch would have a link to the light it switches. And then we could see whether that actually solves the problem you have, and whether it's kind of compatible with the way DynLink works in the core working group. And that would be great. Not sure this should be in this revision of the document.
Okay, so I'm not entirely getting like how this would be defined at the class level, because let's say you have a light switch. It has a model. It can turn on any light, right? So how would you define that because in principle it's not linked to a particular light that it can turn on. It can basically, it gives a signal, on off, and it can turn on any light. So I'm not sure how you would define that at a class level. Wouldn't it have to be at an instance level? You would define that, because it'll.
The whole point of the class level is to define the instance level. So by saying this light switch has something that ostensibly needs to be set to a value before you really can do very much with it. You would say that at the class level. At the instance level, you would provide a value for that. So this could be done during some initialization or construction mechanism, whatever. But I think that the first observation that is important is that the light switch needs to have something like a property or context item, whatever, that says, I need to have a light to be a useful light switch.
Yeah, or I need to have some, it doesn't have to be a light, the switch can turn anything on, but I need to have something associated with it to be of value.
Right. And something that supports an interaction that is something like a toggle or a dimmer or whatever. But you probably want to say a little bit more about this, about the other thing than just does it exist, that it exists.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, we thought this might be something we'd want to include in the NIPSI spec as well, because we'd have to have an application. We'd have to be able to tell an application, or an application would have to be able to tell a gateway that, such a binding must be created. But yeah, so you kind of mentioned maybe not for this revision, but yeah, that we could take that out potentially, but it is an interesting concept.
Oh, definitely. So yeah, that's why that other draft there exists, and maybe you want to have a quick look at it and see what the motivation behind it.
That was ASDF, SDF type link. I thought I heard you say it was a core document, but no, yeah.
Yeah, got it.
Document called DynLink,
Core Dyn link.
Core
Okay.
Dyn link.
I just want to put it in the notes, that's all.
Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah. Naming. Currently, NIPSI equals non-IP control, which still indicates that the draft only applies to a gateway function for non-IP devices. We took SDF protocol mapping out of the NIPSI spec because we think protocol mapping is useful to other things other than NIPSI. So the question we have now is, we could, in theory, with a protocol map that you could, in theory, apply NIPSI to a protocol map that for kind of an IP-based device. But do you really want to do that, right? Wouldn't you use those APIs directly from an application? So the question is not only about naming, but the question is also, is NIPSI useful to non-IP, and should we define it in a way that it is applicable to that?
Yeah, I think, like as I mentioned before, I think to me the answer is yes. I think it makes sense to not only constrain it to non-IP. Sorry for the double negatives or triple negatives. Yeah, the key point here, I mean, if you would have a setup where you have 90% are non-IP devices, and you have those 5% or 10% of IP devices, would you want to have a different infrastructure for them? Rather have scheme onboarding, same API, same everything, even though you could reach them directly. So I think in that case, you would quite often see, or even if you just start with non-IP devices and then later you have 90% IP devices, but because you started one way, maybe you want to keep on going that way. And so there's a risk that this will happen, and then it will look very weird saying non-IP. So I keep having this knee-jerk reaction, like, when I see non-IP, like half the case I have in mind are actually IP. So I would recommend doing the retronym. We can bike shed with the exact retronym, but I would recommend doing that.
Okay, I think that use case makes sense, because I was thinking more about the use case in which, if you have a bunch of IP-based devices, why would you use this? But in a use case where it's a mixed approach, that does make sense.
Carsten Bormann. So apparently we don't want the acronym to distort what we are building here. The acronym should not have an influence on that. So that sounds a lot like a use case for a retronym. And the retronym is probably best done in a warm summer night in a fireside chat with ChatGPT or something like that. So I wouldn't want to do it here, but I think the important thing is that we do have a gateway function here. I think that's the important observation. And we don't really care whether that gateway talks to the device over IP or not. It's connected in some way, but it's not important whether it's IP or not. So I think we need to capture that part and then just go ahead and retronym NIPSI.
My comment is, let's do it. And I would say that it could be non-IPv4 connected. It could be non-IPv6 connected. And it could be that you have a bunch of BTLE devices that generation 2 have V6 over BTLE. And so they actually are IP connected, but they're also on a different radio. And so it's a transition, like because the devices are this year's versus next year's, but you're still buying them or whatever. And the other thought I had was that you could have two gateways that are tunneling. I don't know that we have a spec for this, but you could make one up, tunneling BTLE over GRE, because the one gateway wants to be in control of them all, and the other one's really just a radio to radio kind of translator. But it could do everything, but you put it in radio to radio because you just wanted to extend your radio range. So I don't know what that is. I don't know. It's non-IP connected, but it's running over IP, right? So.
All right. I hear plenty of reasons to kind of change the name and use a retronym. So that's decided. All right. We're running out of time. Just a few others. I'll go through this quickly. Implementation section. So we've got open source. We have a Cisco implementation. And then are there any others that we can reference? I think reach out if there's others that we want to reference. I just have one question. Like, what do we do with links to vendors' implementations?
The implementation section gets removed by the RPC.
Oh, okay.
So don't worry about it. It's essentially information for the ISG to decide if this is worth all our time to publish it or if it's just a vanity project.
Okay. Okay.
Right.
Okay. I don't have to worry about that. Okay. All right. Thank you. And then the other one is CDDL in all API definitions. So like we have an open API model that describes API plus data model, and then CDDL only describes the data model. So the question is, do we really need both, or should we put the relevant open API sections in the document? Because that describes both the API and the data model. So I just, I don't want to make the document extensively long because we describe the same thing in multiple ways.
Okay, I can't go into the queue.
Oh, go ahead.
So I think the important observation is that there will be multiple data model specification languages. For instance, ASDF has one, which you might think looks like JSON schema org, but it's really a small subset for a good reason. And CDDL is one, and maybe we will have JSON structures at some point and so on. So the important thing is to have the extension point here where we can put in new data definition languages. And I have to
Charles?
Yeah, Charles Eckel. Just going back to the question about the implementations, if it's useful and you want people to see this implementation, I'd say you can put it as an additional resource like you would to the GitHub repo for the draft or whatever. Since it's a working group draft, you'll need the chairs to help you with that. In terms of vendor-specific implementation, I would think that is okay. What you just need to do is make sure your documentation is very clear that that's what it is. Tell people what it is, what state it's in, and then they can decide if it's something they're interested in or not. But I think providing the information seems like it'd be helpful.
Thank you.
We probably have time.
Yeah, I think
more time for you on Wednesday. Same slot, different room Wednesday. We're in Viger. But we have more time for you, Bart, on Wednesday.
Awesome. I'm almost there, so a few more minutes.
Okay, if you have 3 more minutes, then let's finish that.
Okay, like the limited power budget, I think this is something Ari brought up, and we can maybe Ari connect one-on-one on that. I think then there's a bunch of stuff still work in progress. We aim to move relatively quickly on that, so maybe we can have another interim meeting to kind of follow up on these. And then, the next steps are we're going to address comments, the outcomes of the discussions we just had here, finish the work in progress. We really have to proofread the whole thing again as well, because we're making, changes here and there. And then after we do all that, I think we need another round of working group reviews, and then we should be in good shape. I think that's it. That's what I had. So.
Any last minute comments from anyone else before we adjourn to Wednesday? Well, enjoy your lunch.
Yep. Thank you.
I don't know, just thinking about that. That's what I was just running like. Should we push the button? Can we push the button again? Let's not push the button. Let's not push the button. Yeah, we'll try.